Yeah, I love talking about Joy Hour. It is a great event we do, and it's spreading across the country. The Joy Hour is creating a culture of connection. In a sober environment, we have all kinds of events and activities, but it really is creating a culture of connection. Our focus is addiction prevention, also addiction recovery, mental health, hope, and healing through connection. If you'd like to get involved, please go to theconsiderategroup.com/Joy Hour.
Key word to touch on is life is not meant to be a competition. But when people spend too much time looking horizontally in social media at each other's lives, it's easy to not even know you are, but you are comparing. Yeah. You're not even trying to, but your mind is comparing, like, he's always on vacation and I'm not.
Yeah. It's like, well, what is that person doing, right? It's a comparison is a thief of joy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it just makes you think, well, if I was smarter, if I would have made a different choice with the business choice, my career path, then I could be on vacation as much as he is.
Right.
You know, if I would have made a better choice here, and I'm not intelligent, I'm not qualified, I suck at what I do, and then you get into that depression, part of it. But yeah, comparison is the stealer of joy and is the ruiner of relationships.
Yeah, and they're comparing against their idealized vision of this person, not how it actually is, or maybe a lot of people that have more struggles and their life isn't that good. It's always like, oh, the next best thing, like I'm trying to compare against that, rather than assessing where they are.
Well, and you don't ever know unless you get real close with somebody what sacrifices they had to make to get to that lifestyle. If that's what we're looking at is just the lifestyle, but are you willing to do whatever it is that it took them? And a lot of times my answer is no. I used to work 80 hours a week and I don't want to anymore. I got out of balance. It didn't do me any good except my bank account, and everything else suffered. So now where's that balance of?
But it's afforded you, those 80 hours afforded you the opportunity to decide to come back on the hours and bring more balance into your life.
Yeah, and I think that's, for any young man or ladies, growing up in their 20s and 30s, a lot of it is those aspirations of, car, house, maybe a bigger house or more security in this setup, and now I got kids on the way, or, now I need to, and all of a sudden you're in your 40s going, okay, am I at the halfway point? Like, have I achieved where I thought I'd be? And, hopefully it's not the halfway point. Hopefully you're only a third of the way there, but.
There's a real life shift, I think, once you kind of get into your 40s that I notice, because like 20 to 40, I think people are really unhappy. Like their financial struggles, there's other struggles. You're trying to like build your foundation of your life, For me, like I worked a lot too early on, just like you. Maybe didn't sacrifice too much, but there was definitely sacrifice there. Mental health toll, all this sort of thing, and stress. It was definitely, probably my 30s were super stressful, just for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah.
And then, but you build up that foundation, and then your 40s, if you were successful, then, now you have a little bit of free time, which works out good because my kids are older now. It's like, now I need to invest time in them, as they're going through that same phase. But I think there's definitely, if you don't realize that your life has transitioned, you're going to continue that same level of effort and, throughout your life, and then you're going to get to like 50, 60 and be like, where's my family? Where's everything, And so I think being mindful and intentional about, okay, I'm going to grind this year, but next year I'm going to invest in my family and just set expectations. I think that just being mindful of what you're giving up and knowing that, like you can manage it, and then talk to your family, like, hey, I'm not going to have time this year because we want to build a house or we want to do this, so that they understand and,
get the buy-in, right?
Yeah.
And it also includes them in the process of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I never did any of that, but in retrospect, that would have been a good idea.
Oh man, are we live?
We've been live.
All right, cool.
He's probably recording us the whole time. He's probably got the spilling of coffee on camera.
Well, we are live on the Joy Hour podcast today with my good friend Tony and Thomas over here. And it's natural and easy just to jump into conversations and go. So anyhow, I guess official introductions now are done and we can just keep doing what we do.
Yeah.
This is a relationship thing, and I'm so thankful for the relationships in my life. And, just quickly touch on, meeting you, Tony, was just such an awesome experience. Good friend David Duncan that I worked for when I was about 19, so 25 years ago or so, and I was building a deck for him in Kirkland, and he came out and he's like, hey, I think I asked him, I said, what do you do for work? And he said, well, I sell life insurance. And then he said, hey, have you thought about a policy? Of course, I'm 19 years old. Dude, I'm invincible. I'm never going to die. I don't need life insurance. Like, no, framing this deck, and doing what I do.
He's probably watching you do that. As by this guy.
He's going to need it. No, that's true. That's true. No harness up on the second level there. But I did. I think it was $25. I signed up for a life insurance policy.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. David was always a friend and persistent. Not persistent, but he would check in periodically, but not pushy.
Right.
Hey, you should think about putting a little more in. Hey, you should up. Just so there for me, but not a salesman.
Right.
And so I still have that relationship with David 25, 26 years later. And then a number of years ago, 4 years ago, I think it was, one time he wanted to come and check on my policy and sit down and just hang out and talk things over if I wanted to tweak anything. And said, hey, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, Tony's coming along. And I think I was busy, kind of in this mode of like, well, fine, if you want to meet, come to my house, which was also my shop at the time. And I'll never forget, I think I was T-shirt and jeans, about ready to run out and do the construction for the day. And these two sharp-dressed men show up at my house in suits, but not too dressy, not a tie, I don't think, but just a sport coat. And Tony, dashing as always, rolls in there, and I'm kind of leery, like, why is David bringing this guy? What's this all about? And then we had 2 or 3 meetings, and you got to know my wife and my kids, and David came over for dinner one time, and laughter and real talk, and I was going through some major struggles in my addiction during those years, alcohol and struggles I had going on, but David loved me through any and every conversation, and then that just rolled over to our relationship. You get to know the real Tom.
Yeah.
And then you, now at this point, actually have not just my life insurance, but all my money. So hope it's doing good. But no, I seriously trust you. And I've given your name to friends and family, and I do trust every bit of what you do with Ultimate Wealth Strategies. And I think that's phenomenal. That's why or how we met.
But why do you trust him? I mean, look at him.
This is true.
No, I think that's really interesting, right? Because that's hard to know who to trust.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we've been wrong before, right? Everybody that's lived any time at all has been wrong. And it hurts when you are wrong. People change. You got to be eyes wide open in this world, and always aware. But I guess just the way that the communication happens. You check in. If I ask a question, there's an answer. But I don't know, more so the amount of hours that you've spent kind of around my kids, my wife, the bond that's there.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll jump into the one. He came to my office.
Yeah. Oh no, this is gonna be good.
Oh man, a couple years ago. No, a year ago, I guess it was. And ready to update me, ready to show me where my monies are at and what they're doing and all these numbers. And we sat down, and I start crying. And just stress and pressure in life. And I cried for most of 20 minutes. And that's what he did right there. Just took it in and he listened. And I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Because that's what I needed that day.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a slogan we have at Considerate. It's where relationship matters. And so when I see people like you in your industry and what you do, doing that for your client, now your friend, with a sincere, like, you care about my son Clark.
Mm-hmm.
You care about my wife.
Yeah.
And that is why I trust you, is not what stock or where it is in the world and what you're doing with it. It's just, I don't want to be real risky, and I don't want to do nothing with it. My tolerance.
Right.
And some goals, and you push on me to invest when I can, but you're just there for me as a friend, and that's how I try. And then you've introduced me to great people.
Yeah.
And that continually
This guy
rolls
here.
into that, which I want you to talk about first, how you guys met, and we'll roll from there.
Yeah, so Thomas and I met at AMC in Woodinville.
Right.
Right. They were in Kirkland at the time
Yeah.
when we met.
Yeah.
And then we moved over to Woodinville after the pandemic. And, we're doing the normal class. I might have been choking him out.
And he kept coming back for more.
He comes back every Saturday, so I'm like, okay, this guy likes it.
So how did you first hear about him and where he was and what he was the training?
Well, so I was going to AMC, and they have like the no-gi, like grappling
Mhm.
class on Saturday, and that's what Tony taught.
Okay.
I liked it. It was really small, but it was sort of like, there's older guys there, it was a real kind of nice vibe, but also I liked that style, and it was cool. And, it was like really friendly and educational, and, guys there, tried to help me learn. And so, you spend that much time like together on the mat, you like know if somebody's, how you get to know their nature pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right.
How they're going to handle stress, pain, being in uncomfortable situations. People can go one of two ways. They can sort of just like, rage out or whatever. Or they can't manage that and they don't do well, or they give up, or what do they do? How do they manage that? It's like a microcosm of how they manage their life. So I think you get to see a picture of it, like how that person is in all situations.
Mhm.
But I've never been able to challenge Tony. My goal actually is to like one day choke him out. That's like what drives me. But
There's a line for that. But one day he's talking about his house and how he had a challenge with the house and it wasn't getting done. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It should be done. I mean, if you got a good contractor.
Right.
So I go, well, I go talk to this guy I know, Considerate. And he's like, sure, I got the number, right? So instead of just giving you the number, I just did that introduction right then and there,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how I like to do introductions. Like if you want the help, if you need the help, and you have good people,
Mm-hmm.
then they should meet, right? Yeah, because generally what happens is like going to a networking event. It's like, oh, here's the guy's business card. You're gonna get distracted from, your day to day that you might have just put the business card down. You never call the guy. So my philosophy is like, let's just make the introduction, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys decide if it's a good fit,
Right.
right? And then here we are now.
Was it a good fit, Thomas?
yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
We're here now.
House hasn't fallen over?
No.
It's good.
There is a leak though.
Yeah.
I was going to talk to you about that. No.
Oh, good times. And quite the structure, too. Beautiful, off-grid, cool concept of a home, all solar panel.
It's like a
and
fortress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The compound.
Compound is-
I need a landing strip there. That'll be complete.
Yeah.
Remember the first time going out there and walking around thinking, I don't know, taking over somebody else's project. There's this, there's that. What did they do there? And just the thoughts going through my head. But we had a couple discussions, a couple ways of talking through it, and I think talking about expectations. Like how long do you think it'll take to finish? What are the rates? Talking budget, of course, and schedule. But during that process, we would continue to talk about the house. I think one of the things that intrigued me the most was, I think it was our first or second conversation when we were talking about stress. And
Yeah, we were right out there outside the door. talking
Yep.
about it.
Yep, and I remember asking you, like, dude, how are you not, like, freaking out? this last contractor told you 18 months, it'd been like 3 years. I mean, I'd be like choking the guy, like, wow, how did you deal with that? And you remember your answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of relative stress, right?
Yeah, but just the way you were so calm about it.
Yeah, I mean, just in my career and other things, dealing with massive stress, you know, like I used to work at SpaceX, and like just the software you would write, you know, when the rocket's on the launch pad and your stuff doesn't work, you know, and it's $1 million a day, you know, and you got people calling you, and like, you know, it's got to work, right? So,
and right about there is where I'm going, who is this guy, right? And I love that you're humble and just never change.
I never
bro.
tell anybody.
I know, I had to pry it out of you, and I'm even doing that right now. I see
Yeah.
how creative I'm doing that. Just
Yeah.
fishing, I'm fishing it out. You're very humble about what you've done, but I'm very proud as a friend of listening and knowing you. And I think that's what we need to compliment each other on, is that whether it's landscaping, janitorial, construction, doctor, lawyer, athlete, I think no matter what, we're all humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have.
Yeah.
We need to respect each other no matter what our career choices, no matter our intellectual levels. This is such an important part of humanity, is to truly value another human no matter what they make per year, no matter what choices or mistakes they've made. And I've seen you do that with other people.
Well, it's all about like return on investment. So like you get angry. Like I said, like it kept me up at night sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
just like seething with anger, you know, just like, you know, it's like I was like pretty pissed off sometimes. But then you have to kind of manage that, because it doesn't get you anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what am I going to do? Okay, I can go sue them, but that's marginally successful. You talk to people, it's like, yeah, good luck with that. That's 2 years of my life, you know. I just want to move on, enjoy life, not deal with that, you know, and keep that wound fresh over and over. And I think it's what do you get out of that emotion? You know, sometimes you know, you have fear, you have anger, you have drive. Like you can use those as tools. You know, it's like, oh, maybe you feel inadequate, or you feel upset that you're not achieving this. Like if you make that, you turn that into a tool for motivation or whatever. Like, I don't like this feeling, I want to get rid of it. So then you start getting up at 6, you go to the gym, you work out, you show up at the gym, you know, and train every Saturday or whatever. Then you don't have that feeling, goes away. You're like, okay, like now, you know, you got to use it as a tool for improvement. Otherwise, it'll just consumes you, and then you're just a slave to your emotions, right? So,
I love that. Very, very true as far as the feelings and how they come in, and do they control us, or do we control them?
Yeah.
And how does a man, you know, do that? And you touched on, you know, exercise, or what time you set your alarm for. I know you're into hiking, doing a lot of that outdoor lifestyle, but you know, I admire men like both of you, that we've had moments where we've shared stress, anger, feelings of not being successful or adequate, and lows and highs, basically. And there's a feelings wheel at my shop, and it says feelings are like waves. You can't control them. You decide which ones you surf. And so just that awareness on that feelings wheel, it'll have everything from infuriated, violated, anxiety, optimistic, you know, joyful, all these different words, probably 100 words on this feelings wheel, you know. And I look at that and I'm like, man, in one day, sometimes I feel like a dozen of those. But what do you do with them? And then getting outside of yourself to say, all right, I've got a decision to make. You know, I'm stressed over my house and this contractor, or, you know, you've got pressure in the career, in the work that you do, and you know, and I, you know, most of my life I didn't do so good with those. And I used to go to chug. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on that a little bit. You guys know my story well, and you know, for Tom, it just is something that I just don't touch anymore, because it became a coping mechanism. But, you know, you guys, and I've never told you this, but I've watched you guys, and you guys have taught me some things as far as how to deal with stress. You know, for many, many years, 24 years of my career, I had my dad and brother side by side every day. And I watched as they would be very calm dealing with stressful moments. And I'm like, how could you? I just want to like jump in and like slap people around. And both of them were very calm. And so I admire them. And just other men in my life, I've been able to say, like, how are they dealing with that pressure and that stress? And, you know, I'm doing better. I want to continue to do better. But you guys have been a good example of that. I remember a hike we went on and talking, you know, and that's another spot with guys to have real talk, is just get by a campfire. You and I went camping out there by the river.
It was
and
a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
I'm not much of a camping guy too, so.
You did it, man, right there by the river. You roughed it. I mean, you looked like a natural, man.
Literally went to REI that day. It's like, what do I get for camping?
You're out there fishing, you know.
Yeah. You brought your son with you.
Brought my son with me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You got to do that again soon, man.
Oh yeah.
It was so important, you know, to carve out those times where you can, even if it's one day,
Yeah.
you know, 2 or 3 is better, but just that time to get out there and go, hold on, Tony made it through that stressor. You know, Thomas has made it through that kind of pressure, and you're listening to other people's stories. And what it does is it makes you go, hold on, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
But if I look at your lives or other people's lives only through the lens of what I see on social media, or only their high points, okay? So-and-so got a promotion. So-and-so's on vacation. So-and-so started another business. They got another car. If I only see those highlights,
Yeah.
because they're not going to post or brag or talk about the other.
Yeah.
That's where I think, you know, we just need to continue these moments and make time as men to say, this. I mean, my wife, she's very supportive. If I say, hey, I'm going on a hike this Saturday. Now, if I go every Saturday,
Yeah,
there's going to be a point.
Yeah.
But men need each other to listen to those moments of how do you get through X, Y, and Z.
I think that's what's helped me over the years. You know, AMC, mixed martial arts, and has helped me tremendously throughout my career and the struggles, the ups and downs, because you're with other men, women, you know, hitting each other, punching each other in the face, choking each other out. But we're also learning together. Right? We're learning how to deal with the challenges of a fight, right? And life's a fight.
Yeah.
Life is a fight. And if you're not able to handle somebody punching you in the face, how can you handle the other stuff, right? But there's also a certain brotherhood, right? Earlier we talked about having those pegs to support you. And AMC's been that place for me, right?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about, you know, finding that support group, and you know, you have your accountability partners.
Huge shout out to Zekin. They are doing amazing things to help us, and they will help you. For more information, hit here.
There's no other way.
I love stuff like that. I love, you know, those challenges. Like, that's what I like about grappling. That's what I like about flying. That's what I like about hunting. Like, all these things force you to be present. You know, you don't have your phone out. You know, that's why a big thing that you talk about. But things that force you to be present, and there's a toll if you're not present and focused. You know, it's like grappling. It's like, oh, you didn't detect, you know, this, you know, shift of weight. It's like, now you're done, right? Or you didn't detect. Like, there's, you know, you're hunting and you have a lapse of focus and you step on a twig, and then your entire week-long investment in a hunt is gone. You know, and you fly, you have a lapse in judgment. It's tragic, right? So, but I like that because it forces you to be there. You know, there's a quality to it.
I'm just repeating that in my head so I don't forget it. I've never heard that before. There's a toll in not being present.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, that's deep. You think about that in relationships with people.
Goes all the way.
If I'm not present with my son, my daughter, my wife, if I'm not present with bro when he needs me.
Yeah.
And I'm just, how was your day?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody does that.
Right.
And then later you're like, man, why didn't I do that? Or like, hey, I want to like share something now, and then they're doing the same thing, and you're like, well, you get in this cycle, right? And it's like, well, that's not, you don't develop that intimacy.
These are definitely a destroyer of what relationships really can be.
But it also could be a connector.
Yeah.
Yes, used properly, absolutely. Used properly, but that's what I'm challenging myself is when I go to dinner, you know, not having it on my person.
Yeah.
When I'm outside playing catch with my kid and not having it in my pocket. Just that difference alone makes that time together 10 times better than it. Even, so say my phone's in my pocket. I don't touch it for an hour and I play catch with my kid for an hour. Versus my phone is not in my pocket. Even that, somehow he knows, and even I know, if it's in my pocket.
Right.
And it takes an effort to say it's not. It's going to be in the other room, and I'm going to forget about it completely because I am playing catch, or I'm in this, lunch meeting, or, I'm in this. But it's so easy with your family to take them for granted. If you and I meet for a business lunch, bro, I'm in. That thing could go off. People could be calling left and right, but I'm in a lunch meeting.
Yeah.
But then I go home, and do I do that with my spouse, or do I do that with my kids? And the phone is such a important thing to have, but important thing to control. And I think that's where, I look back at my dad, who has been gone for about 6 years. I miss him all the time, but he was very present, very in. Like, if I'm talking to you right now, I'm talking to you. The sky fell, I didn't even notice because I'm engaged talking to you. He was very good at that, and I think that's
people respond to that for sure if you're present and listening, active listening. I think the thing I've noticed for us, the cell phones came along later, and I think we understand what it's like without that. But I know my kids, it's almost always they'll have one earbud in, and they'll have something playing in the background. You're like, are you talking to me? Are you listening? And like, are you? I think that's a thing a lot of people do nowadays, and just there's like almost like when I'm talking to them, it's almost like a threat of, hey, like if you're not engaging me, I'm just going to listen to this or something.
Which
like
one's
weird.
Yeah, which one's more important? Right? If I'm thinking that you and I are the most important thing right now, I'm not going to be caring about my phone.
Yeah.
But if in the middle of you talking, I grab this, then apparently what you said just took a step down. It's not totally important as much as this is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think animals notice. I think if you have a pet, and I've talked to a few people about this. At first, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I tried doing it with our dogs. And they notice. Like, if you're, like, petting your dog or cat, all of a sudden you start getting distracted on a screen, they pick up on it. It's amazing. It's like, if animals need it, I mean, how much more humans do to know, like, what you say is valued, and I value it, and I respect it enough to say, like, that's all I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, that's like leaving your phone when you play with your kids back in the house, because there's not that, oh, I'll play catch with you, but I might need to do something more important.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I remember going through the MBA program, and we were in China. So in China, and a lot of Southeast Asian, even in India as well, it's acceptable during a business meeting to pick up your phone in the middle of a conversation. Or you could be presenting to a group of people and that phone rings. It's acceptable culturally to pick up that phone, pause that whole presentation, walk out that room. It's like the weirdest thing. And even when I'm meeting with people today, that happens. I'm like, this guy just picked up his phone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell him about his financial plan, right? But to them, it's normal, right?
Yeah.
So what is it about those cultures that accept that, right? And how do those kids feel when they're not that priority?
No, I hear you. I think the biggest thing that I've tried to do, I'm going to continue to do the rest of my life, is think about today. Live like you're dying. Think, what if this is the last time I get to hang out with you two? It's kind of morbid, but if it is, man, let's talk. Let's hang out. Let's have a good time. Like, this is real.
I got boxing gloves in the car. Let's
Oh, actually, I do too. I haven't hardly used them, but I need you to show me how to. Oh, man.
Let's get you the rig once.
It's only going to take one. Oh, man. But no, those times, people when they get to that time in life where either they're told you got a month to live or they just know it's coming, that's what they say is I have more time. I wish I had more time with my grandkid, my wife, my son. And I think just valuing those moments enough to say, this is what I'm doing right now. But I'm gonna take that. You mind if I take that saying? There's a toll for not being present.
It's like 5 cents.
So you do 5 cents, yeah.
It's a
license. He'll send you the license.
Is that box in here? Do you know if we left that box in here? Andy? All right.
Like, do you have any ready-made contracts?
I got this box that I think I told you guys about. I'm going to put the phone in there as an example of what we're talking about right now. Boom. Right there, the Connect box. But my son, who's my youngest, who's 8, he'll ask me when we're playing catch in the backyard, Dad, is your phone in your pocket or the box? And I got a long ways to go to truly use this properly. I've got a few of them made, and ideally would eventually like to market them and sell them. It's not just a box, of course, there's a whole lifestyle that goes along with it, but there's one that's compact and you can open it so you can take it with you to a restaurant or wherever you go. But I made these and gave a few out, and eventually would like to market them and sell them as a fundraiser for Joy Hour. But with this, there has to be a commitment. So I'm working on this in my own life and with my family, but the commitment that I write is I, Tom Lyman, father of 3 children, husband. When I get home from work, I will use this box for 1 hour. Put my phone in it. Pretty simple. But the key thing is when I take the phone out, I put a note in there of what I did. I walked to the pond, I fed the ducks, I played chess, I played catch, whatever. And for people that might say, well, I don't have kids, okay, so you'd write, I did push-ups, I went on a walk, right? And so the point is, after a month or so, you take all those notes out and you read each of them, and you will then create a new habit. Because again, we got to have phones, I get that, but we don't have to have them all. So just those 30 hours in a month that I've replaced in 30 days, I think the overall outcome is going to be so life-changing in, like, even just to say you do push-ups, like, hey, I feel better, I look better, but with your family and with friends, you can do whatever you do with that hour. I think it'll get to the point where then I will challenge myself to do it for 2 hours. Or maybe I do it for 3 hours on a Saturday. It sounds ridiculous, but can I go without my phone for 3 hours on a Saturday? I'll be the first to say I haven't in a long, long time. I can't even remember, it's pretty sad. But do I value my kids, my wife, you guys? Do I value friendships enough to say, I'm going to totally tell myself and everybody that's involved, it's going in there. And I'm excited to read those notes that I'm going to put in there every time I take it. It's a transfer. I have to take out the phone at some point, I know, and I got to put a note in, but then I truly sit down. And you can make a book out of those notes. You can make a vision board or a scrapbook out of those notes. But I think that is what I would sit on my deathbed and say, give me that scrapbook of notes. Give me the scrapbook of what I did with that 1 hour a day. And if I do this, think about in a year, I got 365 notes, 365 things I did with a friend or family. That's intentional. I'm being intentional not having the phone in my pocket. I'm saying feeding the ducks is the most important thing. I'm saying talking to you is the most important thing. But again, there's a whole lifestyle change that goes along with just starting with, even 10 minutes, and writing that pact of what I'll do. So for the rest of this, my phone's in the box, working on it. But yeah, being present is so important. I think that's how our relationships have grown. I feel like for the most part, when any of us have got together, we've been intentional with, hey, we're at sushi, man.
Yeah.
It's about the sushi. Hey, we're on a walk. We're doing, a hike. We're doing what we're doing. But I see so many relationships, so many people at the restaurants, at the mall, at the park, at church, at networking events, and it's like a safety blanket too. Like I don't feel comfortable talking to anybody, so I'm going to look at my phone.
Mm-hmm.
When really they're crying out to connect to somebody. And so much of what you guys, know and have seen in Joy Hour is it's about connection.
Right.
Like if I'm connected to you in a deep way, then if I got a struggle this week, I know I can call you. But if it's just surface and all we do is talk about news and
Yeah.
politics and sports and the weather,
There's no connection.
there's no connection.
Right.
And if all we do when we hang out is when I look at my phone, I'm not going to know if I can trust you and talk to you. But what we're trying to do continually is create a culture of connection. And I think that is such a key component of it, is when you get with people and that's what really opened my eyes at Joy Hour. We started Joy Hour as a happy hour without the alcohol concept.
Mm-hmm.
And month after month, hundreds and hundreds of people coming through. And what I finally noticed there, it just hit me one day, it was like, nobody's on their phone. Like, everywhere else I go, every day of the week, people are on their phones. And at Joy Hour, they're not. They're connected. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've noticed. But I want to ask you, kind of from your opinion, from the Joy Hours you've been to, from what you know about it, what could you tell the audience that Joy Hour is and continues to do?
Joy Hour is pretty interesting because there's no specific event. It's not like a gathering, you're going to go watch a ball game, we're all going to have dinner. It's like this concept of let's just get together for an hour, and there's not like a program, right? The people don't go for the program or the event. And it's really curious, why do people go?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know. Like, I've always tried to figure that out because it's, hey, we have this Joy Hour thing, come and hang out with all these people you don't know.
Right.
So, it always, confused me why it worked. And so I thought maybe, it was just really interesting. And I thought, really the consistency with which you've done it week after week, despite setbacks, despite hardship, that's really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, it's part of what makes you successful, because Joy Hour is, like we talked about holding each other accountable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Joy Hour is, like, you have all these people holding you accountable every
Right.
week for, I'm going to do this. All these people depend on you for having this Joy Hour. But I could never really define what it was. Why are we gathering? It's just really to hang out,
Mm-hmm.
and connect. But people don't just, like, like, I'm not going to Joy Hour when I go thinking, I'm just going to go connect with people. It's like, let's go to Joy Hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, why am I going to Joy Hour? It's like, let's just go to Joy Hour, see what it is.
Right.
It's like, it's always like, it's a really curious thing.
And I think, it unfolded very rapidly and very organically in that it started with a pool table and a ping pong table and some food. 30 people. Had a great time, said, let's do it again. And by the fourth event, 4 weeks later, there's 160 people there. And that's when I'm going, wow. And talking to each and every person like I have over the period of a year and a half, the common thread out of at least, I would say, 5,000 plus people is we need it. COVID and isolation from COVID.
Yeah.
And cell phones and what they've done to our families and other electronics, video games, and alone time, isolation time.
People are so hungry just to meet other
Right.
people.
Oh yeah, people
It's
just
like,
come in.
give us just some excuse to connect.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, I remember people walking in, fathers and mothers and their kids, of course, run to the bouncy house, and they're thinking, it's a kid's thing, right? And all of a sudden I watch, and they're just like, and they're over there in the bouncy house, or playing chess or checkers, or playing basketball, or just sitting down having a conversation. But the amount of tears, the amount of laughter, the amount of real connection that's happened through Joy Hour blows my mind. And it has nothing to do with, in fact, it was my original idea. It's just naturally people need that. And I've seen healing in people's lives happen in that building in their conversations when they realize I'm not alone. And I'm just sitting back going, All I had to do was bring a pool table, and that miracle is happening right now. That 23-year-old is talking to that 40-year-old, and that 40-year-old's giving some wisdom to that 20-year-old, and that's happening, and I have nothing to do with it, and it's not about Tom at all. It's just connection. I just provided a facility, and the initial thought of connection versus isolation, and you're not alone, and as long as there's breath, there's hope, and there's a better tomorrow, and I don't care what you've done yesterday, it doesn't matter. Like the past is the past. Letting people feel safe, letting people feel normal, letting people know, like I tell people, rehab's the best thing I ever did as far as for my life at that time. I mean, going to rehab twice, took twice, but it was a great experience. I do a lot of things with 12-step programs that talk a lot about hurts and hang-ups and habits and failures and anger and resentment and jealousy and all those other things that go along with it, but ties in with fitness and ties in with overall the word just ties it all together is connection. Why do people join a gang?
Connection.
Looking for the family, bro.
Yeah.
You're my fam.
Yeah.
I got your back, you got my back, and they didn't have that growing up, so now they found that. And in this environment, I've seen so many people that right now have relationships of their own, have nothing to do with me, you, but they met in this building. They met in this atmosphere of like, we don't know why we came other than to party and have a good time without substances, without alcohol, and without screens. And those real conversations where the next day they wake up and go, I really enjoyed talking to Joe. I really remember that conversation with Mike. I wonder how Mike's doing today. And there becomes a hunger and a curiosity to help your fellow man live a better life. I mean, if deep down we are only about us and all about Tom and Tom's retirement, Tom's empire, Tom's bank account, it's a pretty dead-end road. But when I step outside and I do volunteer work or I do service work and realize, like, there's a lot of people that have it way better than me. There's a lot of people that have it worse than me. I've shared with you guys, I'm pretty sure, but one of my great role models, my pastor. He had a car accident years ago. He's got a prosthetic, and yet he's a pretty upbeat guy, and he's just dealing with it. But I'm sure there's times where he's going, why? Why did I have to slide on that ice? And he's lost his leg and the pain he goes through, but could be worse, could be better. But letting people know, like, you're not alone with whatever you're going through, and those conversations and those healing moments happen in an atmosphere where everybody feels safe. There's no racism, there's no financial status, judgment, stereotyping. It's just a blend of humanity, sharing food, drinks, bouncy houses, ping pong tables, and that's the organic thing where it's like it just came, I think, so much at a time where finally most of us have realized, like, we can't isolate. It will destroy humanity.
Yeah.
And we got to be so careful with the things that try to isolate us, whether it's a phone, a laptop, a video game, anything that just traps us by ourselves is going to be very damaging. So
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I feel like, and maybe you could speak to this as with the advent of AI and all these things, and like that loneliness is only going to get worse, right? Because companies are laying people off not because they need to cut costs, but they just don't need that person to do that particular job anymore. Right? So what does that do to the person who's relying on that? And what else are you going to do for identity, for work?
Right.
Are we all going to be on a stipend? I mean, what's the end goal of constant improvement in technology?
And even worse than that is think about AI as a substitute for human interaction. People are already on their phone. You can see a chat GPT, you can ask it things, it responds pretty human. But, what about you have a assistant that's you talk to and like, just like you and I talk, it's like, oh, I'm not feeling well today, and it talks to you and like helps you feel better. Think about what does that mean? Like, is the AI your new, friend, or like you can see how people can easily fall into that trap and then be manipulated via whatever, you know, because you're kind of helpless, you know, to that. So because humans are fairly predictable, you know, you can, you know, control them through whatever means, you know, and it's kind of scary to think about that. I think that's I think a big you know thing to consider with that. But if there's human interaction, you know, people won't fall into that. But you got somebody isolated, maybe there's a pandemic or whatever, they're not talking to their friends, they're not communicating, they're on Discord all day, they don't even know if they're interacting with other humans, you know, they're just interacting with artificial, and people already fall into that where it's like they stay in their house all day and maybe game, and they never go out, you know, and then they never meet anybody, you know, and never meet any like people to date or, you know, get married. And it's like you just get in this trap. It's really you can see how it can just descend even further down that path. I think it's so.
Yeah. Human interaction, and you know, going to the grocery store and checking out in the self-check line, there is zero human interaction.
Yep.
And I don't go to those lines unless it's just like a mile long over here because I want that human interaction. There's times I do, I get that. But if you took it all away and all of it was computers and no human interaction, you're right. Like, who's there to lift you up? And when are you there to lift somebody else up?
Well,
and so
Alexa would lift you up,
right,
supposedly.
right, supposedly, yeah.
Yeah.
But just use a grocery store. Say I went to a grocery store every week. I guarantee you, if that cashier is there, and after months go by, we've exchanged names. How you doing today? At some point, when I say, "Hey Joe, how you doing?" If Joe responds in a certain way, I'm gonna know he's not doing good. And if I care about Joe, because why should? But then again, why would I care, right? Like that's a selfishness or selflessness of really caring about other people. You could say, "Oh, I've arrived, you know, I'm at this point, and so I don't need to be friends with the cashier or the janitor," but yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And you know what? All of a sudden, what happens is that cashier might need me to say something, might need a hug. You know, remember hugs? Back when people weren't afraid of getting close to each
Human
other.
interaction.
Right.
Yeah.
I know not everybody's such a hugger. That's okay. My wife and I are actually different. I'm the big hugger, and she's kind of, you know, she's not as much. That's okay. But ultimately, everybody needs a hug. Everybody needs real laughter, real eye contact. But if I do that for Joe, give it a month or two, I go through something in life, and Joe's there for me. When he's like, "Hey, how you doing, Tom?" And I just start crying. Is Joe going to go, "Bro, come here. Forget the job for half a second. Come here," and bring it in. And that might save my life. That might save his life. The whole trajectory of my life could change because of what a cashier and I had as an interaction that'll never happen with a computer.
Right.
But real eye contact cannot be replaced. Real tears, real laughter. You know, we can say all day long, "Hey, you lost a loved one. Here's an emoji. Here's praying hands. Here's all kinds of text and emojis in whatever way I want to communicate to you." But it ain't going to help at all when I see you the next day and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" Totally forgetting that you just lost a loved one, right? Because I've already acknowledged it, right?
Yeah.
But if I haven't truly built those chords of, I care about you. I care about you and I love you as much as I love myself. And ultimately that's a lot of what Joy Hour boils down to as well is, you know, I'm far from perfect, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be intentional with those conversations and say, I care about this person as much as I care about myself. And what they're saying right now seems like a big deal to them, so I'm going to be even more engaged with that conversation.
Right.
Because I want to make a difference in their life. Hoping, I guess that in some ways it's reciprocal. Where a year from now, you know, I mean, losing my dad 6 years ago was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I think a lot of why I got into my drugs and alcohol as much as I did was I never had built the connections as strong as I should have with some guys in my life going, "Hey, I got to talk. You know, I'm mad at God right now. I don't know who to talk to, you know." But instead, you know, I went to the cemetery and I drank and did my drugs and just got worse and worse and worse. And so when crisis happens, that's the most important time for humans to be there for each other, because Alexa will not be there for you. And any other technology will not be there for you.
Alexa will refer you to 3 therapists.
Right.
call this number.
or some medication that'll
Yeah,
help
or
you.
some medication.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
say,
when
it's your
truth,
therapist.
but truthfully, what you what you need is to go and have a good talk and a good cry, and
Yeah.
maybe go get on the mat and have a good,
Yeah,
you know.
thorough beating.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, one thing I've noticed is, like, there's like a line to. Okay, so like bringing let's say you say hi to the cashier, you meet somebody while you're out. Like, I grew up in the Midwest, you know, in a small town. People talked, interacted, but I notice, like, particularly, I think the Pacific Northwest is somewhat known for this, but like, you say hi and you kind of hit it off, but there's never an exchange of, hey, let's exchange phone numbers or anything else, or email, like, let's get together for dinner Friday. It's like, I don't know if people just don't know how to do that, or if they just don't think about it or are uncomfortable about it, you know, because I see that, you know, people in my family will meet and, like, talk, have a good time talking to people, like an artist at a, you know, fair or something like that, and it's like, oh, why didn't you exchange, you know, Facebook, you know, whatever, and they're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, but you could be a good friend, you know, it's like, you made a connection, and then you're just gonna let it go. But I think teaching people how to make friends in a way is like a lost thing in some ways. Like, people just don't know how to do that anymore or something. I think it's very interesting.
I see that a lot in networking events, which is why I've stopped for the last several years going to these things, because you'd have good conversation, you connect with people, you get their business card, and then you reach out to them, it's crickets. Like,
They probably don't even remember you or something.
yeah, they don't remember, or it's like, why did you even give me your business card if you don't want to connect?
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, I think it's that they're so used to interacting on Facebook, all this social media, that they don't know how to connect beyond that, or they don't want to be vulnerable, right? Because at the networking event, you meet the amazing person who's a director, or CEO, whatever, right? And they're doing amazing things. But then to really dive deep into that relationship, that's not something a lot of people want you to be part of, right? So I mean, that could be it.
I hear more and more people say how they're so busy, they're so exhausted, they're so tired, and yet I beg to ask them to challenge themselves and look into their own life, or I'd be curious to look into theirs, and if you could almost fly over the world and kind of look in sight of what people spend their time on. You know, your phone will tell you how much time you spend on it, but if you cut that out and truly start challenging yourself.
I hate that.
Yeah.
So you spent 2,000 hours on your phone last year. It's like, man, if I would have practiced my guitar for that or something. It's like,
anything at all. Yeah. But when we truly live intentionally, saying the phone's a real thing, computer's a real thing, you know, a lot of us use it for our careers, but just managing it, not letting it manage you, and then, you know, being old school. And hey, man, it's so good to meet you. Can I get your number? I'm gonna call you, you know, and then calling them the next day or next week, you know, just checking in, man. Hope you're doing good, you know. It takes work. There's a verse, you know, a man that has friends must show himself friendly. As a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. You know, I've found that to be true in my life. There's times where, you know, I miss my dad, and I go to the cemetery, and I shut the phone off. And I sit there with a book or a journal, a Bible, a cup of coffee, one or the other, and I have some real kind of come to Jesus moments in my life, in like, he literally has given me a hug that is better than any hug I've got from any human. And I've found out, like, that's real. And then when I take that the next day or the next week and I'm around a brother that's going through a struggle and I give him a hug, I think that transfers. And it's not just a quick, hey, bro, what's up? It's I'm here for you. I'm here for you when you are by yourself in your garage or in your car, screaming at the sky or pounding the steering wheel. Don't forget this hug. I'm here for you. I'm not saying I can fix it, but I'm here for you. Don't do something stupid. Don't drink and drive. Don't overdose. Don't make a bad decision and go all the way. And, in the recovery world that I'm working in, I don't know if you'd say recovery coach. I think that's the closest thing I can come up with. But I'm working with men on a weekly basis that are really struggling. And ultimately, a lot of it has more to do with the anger and the loneliness and the jealousy and the resentment and the bitterness than it does the actual alcohol or the substance. Some people can drink and set it down. That's different. I'm talking to the ones that are like, I drink myself to sleep. I drug myself to sleep. I drink myself to sleep and I wake up and do drugs. I mean, it's just, this is how I get by. I have to have this. And for others, it's they find they're coping through money or through other things. But deep down, I'm trying to, with the Joy Hour movement, what motivates me is to find those opportunities for those real conversations where somebody's like, bro, you're the first person that's been this vulnerable, this transparent. So I come right out with my story of going rehab, just about lost my marriage of 20 years, would have lost the business, hit rock bottom. I mean, just real talk to let them know, like, what you see right now, yeah, I'm aware. It looks pretty good, nice house, swimming pool, cars. Yeah, I'm aware of what it looks like. I've worked 30 years to attain the assets that I have. And in a lot of ways, I'm proud of them. I worked a lot of hours, and God's helped open the doors, and my dad taught me good work ethic, and I'm a great contractor, absolutely. But that stuff isn't what brings me joy. I've had men literally roll up, meet me at the house, and their comment is, oh, that's why you have so much joy. They see my house or my assets. And
I remember one of the meetings, I saw your G-Wagon. Okay.
Yeah, indoor swimming pool. I mean,
business is good.
Own a restaurant, absolutely, yeah. But deep down, they don't.
You never talk about those things ever.
I used to. The Tom before I met you. Oh, my identity was money. My identity was stuff. Talking about business and
You were pretty excited about the G-Wagon wrap, though.
Yeah, it was cool.
That looked cool. I'll give you that.
There are times I miss it. And there's nothing wrong with stuff. If you monitor your attitude and you're humble and hey, it's all relative. Whether somebody makes 50 grand a year or 500 grand a year, it's all relative based on how you keep your spirit and your heart, how you truly respect other people. If you can get to the point you're making $5 million a year and you can truly look at every janitor, every busboy, every paper boy, not that we have those anymore, but in the eye and care about their day and be engaged in their life, absolutely, I'm happy for you. But if your $5 million got to you to a point where you're like, yeah, that's my Bugatti, shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you. That's not success. And I think those are the type of people that I'm trying to continue to be around is like you guys. I've seen that, whether it's all relative, but whatever those dollars are, and I pray that our careers and our families continue to be blessed, to bless other people. There's prosperity with a purpose.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But no, deep down, the things that have brought me the most joy is the free things, feeding the ducks, my kids. I asked my son the other day, I said,
You're loving those ducks, man.
Oh, dude, you
brought those
gotta,
up.
dude, it's a 1 minute walk from my house, and I've taken it for granted for 8 years, and they're there every day. It's 1 minute away. And when I go there, bro, it's peaceful. It's right there. Little pond. But
You'll see me in the bushes tomorrow. I'll be like, I'm going to get a duck.
no, you're not killing them. You're feeding them. Oh, man. But, yeah, this is exciting. And I see a lot of things. I'm sure you guys see them once in a while, the reels and stuff. And they talk a lot about success.
Man, reels will suck you in.
Oh, yeah.
They
grind. You got to grind. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to work your tail off. And I'm going, really? And what if you sacrificed all your important relationships with your family and friends to attain this? If you can attain that and you've truly balanced, we're back to balance, right? What we're trying to do at where we are in our lives, I know we are because we talk so much, is the balance. There's nothing wrong with the airplanes. Absolutely. And you knew we were going to talk about airplanes at some point, bro. I'm excited for you.
I'm awake now.
Yeah. Tell us about the airplane. Come on. Let's take just a minute here.
What do you want to know about it?
When are we going to go up?
Yeah.
Friday.
What's the maximum amount of people? Can he sit on my lap and we can take all three of us? 2 people.
Two people.
It's awesome.
two.
It's awesome. How fast does it go?
130
Okay.
miles an hour. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
slow.
Pick a name yet?
No,
Oh man, it was cherry red. It's
It's
be a red light.
It's
It's like a
beautiful.
hot rod.
it's
Red.
like the funnest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like amazing.
And it took a lot of hours though, a lot of dedication. And when did you first think about it? Like when did you?
It was like 3 years ago. It
Just-
took some work. I think, just I moved like midway through, and that made it hard, and just like various things. It wasn't like super easy for me to get that pilot license, but
Yeah.
now that I got it,
Well, what inspired you to go to pursue
well-
flying?
well, it's kind of interesting. I think when I was a kid, my dad had taken a couple lessons, handed books, and so that's maybe it was always in the back of my mind is because it doesn't seem like something you can do. Like people just don't think about it. It's
Mm.
like, oh, I can fly. It's like no, like it's like not a normal thing. But then I think that opened my eyes to that possibility. But it was our 20th anniversary. I was like, oh, I want to do something pretty epic, And so I was like looking around for quite a while, and I found this lodge up in Alaska, and you just bush fly around for like 4 days, and like that's pretty cool. And so took Keith up there, and we did that. And I got back, and it was amazing. You're flying over glaciers, everything else. I was sitting there on my couch. I'm like, you can just get a plane and fly. I was like, that's something you can do. And it just blew my mind. And so then that's kind of what I was like, oh, I'll just go do that. That was cool. But here I am.
Kind of like the sawmill too.
Yeah.
One day he's like,
Yeah.
I'm out here cutting
That's
trees with my
something
own
you can do.
sawmill.
Oh, yeah, Tony ran
Yeah,
the
that was a
mill.
lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
I wanted to stay out there all day and
Dude, all that.
cut wood and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it's very cool. And then like that thing we're framing,
Right.
it's all cut from that mill.
I love it.
Yeah, we talked about creating a bespoke, ethically
Oh, yeah,
sourced
yeah.
wood.
Yeah,
that you could sell,
artisanal
right?
2x4s.
Yeah. Each 2x4 has a story, has an origin.
Yeah, you get a
Yeah.
letter of authenticity,
Yeah.
black diamond,
Yeah.
black diamond.
Just flash back to our earlier conversation
I mean,
about
that box should be made.
Yeah.
Should be
from
what?
That, from that wood.
Artisanal black
Mhm.
diamond lumber, yeah.
I believe in this. And although I've had a lot of ideas that my better half has gone, you're crazy, this is one she actually thinks is also a great idea. We're gonna keep pushing forward. You said something when we first met too about stress and success and all that, and it just came to me as you said, I'm just not afraid to fail.
That's a big deal because people are like, oh, well, like a lot of people won't do that step of,
Mhm.
oh, this is something you can do. I'm just going to go do it. It's like, there's a good chance I don't make it or like, but that's never stopped me. And I don't think it stopped you guys, but
Mhm.
a lot of people are paralyzed by fear of
Mhm.
failure and they won't do those things. You think about a lot of people want to do mountain flying, but they're just mentally can't make that step and like they're scared of it or just whatever. And overcoming that fear of failure, I see that a lot.
Mhm.
As a big, really, it's if you're not afraid to fail and you go for it. Those are the people who do that. Like almost invariably succeed in some way or another. They might have rocks, a rocky road to get there, but they're gonna get there. Whereas people are just too afraid. They'll talk about it, but oh, I really want to do this someday, and you're like, well, why don't you just go do it? So, all kinds of
Yeah.
excuses, right? All day long excuses, but they don't just go for it. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna start this joy hour. Like you weren't
Mhm.
like, oh, maybe nobody shows up. You probably in the back of your mind, maybe
Oh, yeah.
nobody cares, but
Well.
you did it, right? And you weren't paralyzed into inaction.
Mhm.
You just went for it.
Right.
And that's how I am.
Right.
I just go for it, and then, oh, okay, that didn't work out. Let's try something else.
So just thinking as you're talking, back to a child. So much of who we are comes from our childhood.
Mhm.
And if you're 2 years old, you kind of fall down, you get up, you don't even think about it. But when you're, say, 10-ish, and you fall. I used to roll my ankles a lot, just weak ankles. I'd just fall, right? And just for no reason. And when people laugh at me, I turn beet red, so don't laugh at me. They
I'm gonna make fun
Call
of your
me
ankles every
Tommy
day.
Tomato. I was
Tommy
chubby. Oh, dude.
Weak
Uncoordinated. And I went to a small school, and I still felt the ridicule, the humility, the embarrassment. You know, they say what embarrassment's the flip side of pride, or vice versa. But there is this fear of failure, and I think even more so these days because everything can be so public, so quick. You know, if you fail and something's said, all of a sudden the whole world knows about it.
Oh, yeah.
If I fall right now or spill coffee, like somebody did earlier.
Who did that?
Right, we chuckle, but we're not like, good Lord, what's wrong with him?
Yeah.
But there's so many times in life, depending on your circle, and I know once when we talked, you talked about a tight circle. And, you know, that's so important. But that circle, it'd be nice if it was more than one or two, you know. I mean, it's nice to have, you know, a group of people you can truly rely on and trust. And when you fail, instead of just falling on the ground because you rolled your ankle or spilling coffee, but you started a business and it failed.
Mm-hmm.
You went bankrupt. Your relationship failed. Whatever. Your health failed, you know. And who's going to be like, it's all right, man. It's cool. I got you. How can I be here for you? All right, man. No, let's, you know, instead of this. Because, see, there's something
what can
about-
I do to help? Not look
Right.
at you, dude.
But the selfish side of humanity is sometimes in one that goes, I knew he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's this putting down the other person to make themselves feel better. It's a very high school mentality of not like, I want you to win. We got to be careful with how we treat others. We got to be aware that others are going to say what they're going to say, but not having a fear of failure can hold people back from a lot of potential in everything, relationships, businesses, of course. But life's short. You know, you blink and you're 30, you blink and you're 50, you blink and you're 70, and you know, you're going to start a business when you're 90. You're going to start a relationship when you're 90? Not so often. You know, we're supposed to have this thing figured out. But I think life is all about failing and having a brotherhood of people that are like, it's all right, man. I think it's awesome you tried.
Right.
What are you trying next? How can I help you try that? So I want to continue to be a part of somebody that truly cares about what's going on in other people's lives, and knowing, like, celebrate failures. Like, yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought 3 Bobcats. You know what they do? They sit there. Like $400,000 in equipment.
Dude,
It's
I
just
love
sitting
my
there.
skid
Yeah.
loader.
You want to use
said,
my
like,
Bobcat? It's sitting. Seriously, they're just sitting.
Bring the
And
excavator over, man.
I feel like a failure, but there's a time where I'm going to have to give up on it and sell them and go, I failed at that business. Is
Or
never,
a friend might need it.
right? I feel like I'm this close to like some of those things happening. And that's how that relationship side goes. Patrick actually should be calling you today if he hasn't already.
Yeah, he texted me.
Very interested in solar. I'm like, I know the guy that knows about solar, you know? And so when you keep each other on your mind of like, if somebody asks me about financial investment, boom, there's one person. Just like with tires. You need a tire guy? Les Schwab. I've had a relationship with a guy for 25 years.
Yeah.
Get this. When I need new tires on my vehicle, I don't go to Les Schwab. John comes to my house, picks up one of my vehicles in the evening, takes it to the shop. The next evening, he brings it back.
Wow.
I mean, he goes back with my dad 20-something years ago. He looked at me one day. We were sitting in my shop. He said, Tom, I've been a salesman at Les Schwab, one of the top salesmen for 28 years. He said, I've never met anybody like your dad to this day. I'll never forget that man. And so those relationships, they're not easy sometimes to make. You got to want to. You got to have a desire to.
Yeah, you got to put in the time.
Right. And then a why. Am I doing it for ulterior motives, or am I doing it because I love people, and I'm going to be there and celebrate their failures, and I'm going to celebrate their successes. I got to twist his ankle and get back up. And next week I twist mine. I get back up. But that's what we need to do as we move forward, is just continue to be old school, continue to be selfless, and truly care about each other and want the right thing. And I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of other men in other industries that are like that, you know, that I can go, hey, call him. He's going to take care of you. Is he going to, make a percentage? Yeah, because he's paying the bills at whatever he does. But circling around but yeah, the fear of failure, it's held me back in some ways.